Hello and welcome back to another sealed deck building video. I'm Jesse Marshall, here for the winning agenda, and I'm very excited to bring us another video of Monarch Unlimited Sealed Deck building. So let's crack straight in to this brand new box. Hope everybody's been going well, preparing for the hopefully not delayed again Melbourne calling, though by the time I post this video, there's every chance that we will find out that the Melbourne calling has unfortunately been delayed again. Well, here's hoping that it's not. We've got a sealed deck calling, which is very exciting as someone who really likes sealed deck formats. And so I'm hoping that those of you who are planning on attending are enjoying these sealed deck videos in which I'm trying to give you a bit of a taste of how I might approach building a sealed deck. So we've got another 6 packs of Unlimited Monarch here, and as with the other videos in the series, I'm going to be talking you through my thoughts on a pool as we go through. I actually had a sealed deck tournament last week that I played in at a local game store near me, which was a lot of fun. I ended up playing Prism, not to be too predictable or anything. I know there are some people who think that Prism is kind of the default in this format, or the most powerful option. But I was really close to playing Levier. I had a really sweet Levier deck, but in the end I had a Herald of Judgment and a Luminaris, and it was just a little bit too hard to go past the opportunity to play Luminaris and Sealed. So that was where I ended up. This pack here though, to come back to present things, we've got a Herald of Triumph and a Celestial Cataclysm. Okay, so even though we've got an Ebb and Fold for the shadow side of things, I should probably put that over here on the shadow pile. We've started off with 2 pretty powerful light cards here, one of which is an Illusionist card in Herald of Triumph, particularly a red, coming in for 7, and Celestial Cataclysm, which is a light action. Though it's worth noting that Celestial Cataclysm is actually a lot weaker in Sealed. In some cases, I may not even play this in my deck. I'm probably more likely to actually play it in Bolton than in Prism. So whilst both Herald of Triumph and Celestial Cataclysm can be good, can be good generally in Prism, certainly in Constructed, I'm not so sure that that you get enough cards in your soul as Prism and Sealed to make Celestial Cataclysm work, particularly since you're often relying on those cards in soul to actually become Iris of Reality attacks by becoming Spectral Shields. So all that being said, after pack 1, we've got a red Take Flight, which is one of the most important Bolton cards, as we've discussed previously. We've got a red Dread Screamer, so 2 really good enablers in Levier and Bolton. We've got some middling generic cards, nothing too exciting, although a red Brandish is always nice, pretty much in any deck, to be honest. It's just a sweet, sweet card to have. And then we've got the Ebb and Fold for the shadow side of things. The Herald of Triumph, though, probably the single most powerful card in the pack, although as far as commons go, as I said, Take Flight and Dread Screamer are both looking pretty good. So we've got 3 blues to start off in chain here, which is not too bad. Like, it gives you a bit of flexibility, having quite a few good resource cards in your deck, and Seeds of Agony and Piercing Shadowvires can certainly be good cards to be banishing late. Rip Through Reality is fine as well, but it's just a little too expensive. I think I've made my views on Rip Through Reality known in general. It's not my favorite card. A couple of Spew Shadows, which are good in both Chain and Levier, and a blue Lunatide Plunderer, which it's okay. Much prefer it if it was a yellow or a red, so it could actually be a 6-power attack for our Levier. So Rising Solar Tide and a Blinding Beam and an Invigorating Light. So a few good light cards there. A Dreamweavers, a Herald of Triumph, and a Herald of Triumph. Okay, wow. So we're starting off, we're only 2 packs into our 6-pack pool, and we've already got 3 Herald of Triumphs. The double blue Herald of Triumph in this pack, and then the red Herald of Triumph from pack 1. Now, for those of you who aren't intimately familiar, and a Dreamweavers, it's worth noting as well. So 2 Herald of Triumphs and a Dreamweavers. I think the universe is trying to tell us to play Prism, but, still 4 packs to go. For those of you who aren't intimately familiar with what Herald of Triumph does as a card, it's a Phantasm, so if your opponent blocks with a 6 or more, it will automatically pop, disappear, none of the effects on it will trigger. But Herald of Triumph, unlike the other Phantasms, has this passive ability that says attack action cards have -1 attack whilst defending Herald of Triumph. So they actually need to block with a 7 to trigger the Phantasm. A 6 won't do it. which makes this obviously a lot more powerful. And it's got, you know, the generically decent stats that a lot of the Phantasm cards have. So this one's a 2 for 5 at blue, and the red's a 2 for 7. So very much decent attack cards that also go into your soul if they hit. So they've got a pretty nice on-hit trigger, given that going into your soul means it's a pretty powerful weapon attack on the following turns, once you can turn it into a spectral shield. A red Riftbind and a yellow Smash with Big Tree, which is actually pretty decent since it's a 6-power attack. A Graveling Growl, sorry about the camera, I'm putting my hand in front of the camera too much again. Cross the Line, a red Herald of Tenacity, another red Take Flight. So we've got a lot of reds. There was another of the videos where I talked about how we had too many blues in our Boltyn pool. This Boltyn pool is looking a lot better with 2 red Take Flights, which is probably the best of the commons to get, as well as a couple of other reds. So that's something to keep an eye on. A Memorial Ground, which I don't love. An Illuminate. A blue Minnowism. More decent Boltyn cards. A red Zealous Belting, which unfortunately does not get us up to 6. A Phantasmaclasm foil. So another Prism card. So we've now got a Phantasmaclasm, 2 Herald of Triumph blue, and a Herald of Triumph red, all at rare or higher. Time Skippers. I don't know why I put this Galaxy Black there on pack 1. A Tremor of Iarrathel and a Glisten, which is another decent card for Prism. Although it's fine in Boltyn as well, it is just nice to be able to get... I guess the way to think about Glisten is that it's a pump spell. And given that they're an instant speed pump spell, and given that there are no defense reactions other than Rise Above in this limited format, I've won games with Glisten just by attacking with something they block, they don't overblock, because you can't afford to just constantly be overblocking every one of Prism's attacks in case they have a Glisten, which is a rare. And then you basically give your thing +3 at instant speed, and they're unlikely to have a defense reaction to be able to increase their block amount, so they die. So this is a really good way to get those last couple of points of damage in Limited in particular. And then the Prism token. So even if we just look at the raw maths, I mean, putting aside the fact that we've got so many good rares and even a Majestic now in Prism, we've got so many Prism cards and so many more light cards. And sometimes the sides, the talents, can be a little bit imbalanced, I've found, in this sealed format. Like, you can get heaps of shadow cards or heaps of light cards. It just seems to work out that way. And today, we've just ended up with one of those heavy light pulls so far. But we're only halfway through. I haven't really opened this pack very well. And we'll see if it evens out. So, pack 4. We've got a Rifted Torment to start. A blue Bounding Demigon, a red Smash with Big Tree, so that is one of the aforementioned 7s that will pop a Herald of Triumph if our opponent has them, and if we play Levire. A Wartune Herald yellow, a Courageous Steelhand blue, a Herald of Protection red, Stony Wootenhog blue, a Seek Enlightenment, which is particularly good in Boltyn, but it can certainly be decent in Prism for getting a few extra cards in Soul. An Illuminate, yeah, I mean, this is just... It's not changing anytime soon. We're just becoming more and more Prism-ish here, I think. One thing to note, though, is that we haven't got any generic 6s to pop our opponent's Phantasms, which is something that I really like to have. Ideally 3 or 4 of them if I'm playing Prism, or if I'm playing anything really. But yeah, that is a little bit of a disappointment so far. So hopefully we pick up some of those generic 6s in the next couple of packs. A Gallantry Gold and 2 Levire rares this time. A Writhing Beast Hulk and a Convulsions from the Bellows of Hell red. So not particularly exciting on the blue Writhing Beast Hulk, but a red Convulsions certainly can help to close out a game. Pack 5 of 6 here. All in all, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe about 15, 18 cards just between the light and the Illusionist cards that I'm happy to play, plus the generics. I mean, we've already basically got a Prism deck, and we're only 2/3 of the way through building the pool. So I think I can probably see where this one's heading, but we'll still keep an eye on some of these other decks. Just not enough Boltyn cards here, despite the fact that we started off with great card quality. We just haven't got the quantity. Blue Spears of Surreality, which is a really nice one. Has a resource early, or it doubles as a nice little attack to get in a bit more damage on a key turn. Bolt of Courage, another blue Surging Militia. So we've got 2 blues and 2 yellows Surging Militia, and as one of the better neutral cards, that's always nice to see. Another yellow Rising Solar Tide, a red Blinding Beam, which is a nice one to get. Another blue Yinty Yanty, which we probably won't play, but having blues, sometimes you just want more blues as Prism because your Iris of Reality attacks cost 3, and having them be also attacks in and of themselves can be nice too. So I'm not turning my nose up at things like the blue Yinty Yanties here. A blue Belittle. Belittle is one of the ones that we probably won't play unless we're just really desperate for blues, but Yinty Yanty at least has some benefit. Another Dreamweavers, unfortunately, 2's not going to be very useful for us, but a blue Phantasmify there. If we do end up in Prism, which it looks like we probably are going to, having more Phantasmifies is also another way to get in those last couple of points of damage. So, last pack here. Smash with Big Tree. So more love on the Leviathan side, but unfortunately a blue Smash with Big Tree is not going to do it because it's only a 5. A couple of Arcanic Crackles here coming in the last couple of packs, it's worth noting. This is a really important way for Chain to close out games in Limited. It's a 0 cost attack, it's a 0 for 2 at yellow, but it also deals an arcane damage just automatically. And not only does that enable you to get in some damage that can be hard for your opponent to prevent unless they've got exactly the right equipment, but it also triggers things like your Rip Through Realities, which is really nice. So Chain is looking okay, but just this imbalance between light and shadow means that there's really no incentive for us to stray from Prism here. Picking up, a red Enigma Chimera, a Herald of Ravages as well. I almost want to start another Prism pile here because I've just got so many Illusionist cards. I hope going into these things that I'm not just going to get a nuts Prism pool, that it's going to be a bit more balanced, but this is just how this one's turned out. Impenetrable Belief blue, Adrenaline Rush, Memorial Ground. The one thing that is worth noting again, now that we're coming towards the end, another foil in Prism, which is just like another free extra Prism card. A Hooves of the Shadow Beast, important. A Soul Harvest, also important. And then a Trimmer of Yarthel. So a couple of pretty strong Leviathan cards to close it out there between the Soul Harvest, being the Leviathan specialization at rare, and the Hooves of the Shadow Beast, which can be really important for Leviathan. So there are certainly arguments that Leviathan could work, but really just not enough of the power commons. Like we got the 1 red Dread Screamer, which is great. A couple of Smash with Big Trees that are going to be 6s, as well as a Convulsions and a couple of other decent attacks, but not heaps. Like we didn't get really as many Deadwood Rumblers, Dread Screamers as we would have wanted to really make a consistent Leviathan deck work. But I think any deck that has Soul Harvest and a few 6s is going to be decent and have some capacity to close out games. But yeah, again, the Shadow deficit in terms of Shadow versus Light cards is really just hurting any chances of having a functional Leviathan deck. Comparing that with the Prism though, very important to note that we have, I think, 0 non-illusionist 6s that we can play in the Prism deck. Just having a look through, I think we don't have a red Invigorating Light, and red Illuminate's only a 4. So yeah, no ways to pop opposing Phantasms, but I think we have enough gas with the Herald of Triumphs, the Phantasmaclasm, plenty of good heralds. Like we've got 1 protection, protection being probably the best of the heralds because it gives you the Spectral Shield automatically if it hits, rather than just going into the soul. It gives you the Spectral Shield and goes into the soul, so it potentially, if it hits, creates 2 Spectral Shields over time. And the fact that it doesn't create them both and one of them goes into your soul instead is almost better, because it means that they can't destroy them both on the same turn. You've got 1 now and 1 in the bank for later. So Herald of Protection, a really key card for Prism, as well as having those 3 rares, the 2 Herald of Triumph blue and the 1 red, in the first couple of packs, plus the Phantasmify, plus the Phantasmaclasm. I think this is just going to be a really strong Prism deck. So as with the other videos, I'll just quickly go through and build it up, although I think this one is somewhat going to build itself. But we do have a few choices to make here in terms of the light and the generic cards that we play. So let's just lay all of these ones out. We'll come to the generics in a moment. So we can start off with, we don't have heaps of playable equipment. We've really only got the two, the Time Skips and the Dreamweavers, but the Dreamweaver's obviously very important, so that's nice to know. Then we've got Heralds, so we can divide our attacks here into blue, red, and yellow, and then our non-attack actions into blue, red, and yellow. So we got a nice yellow War-Tune Herald is also a really nice one because it only costs 1, which can, you know, mean that you can pitch a yellow and have War-Tune Herald plus something else like a Phantasmify on the same turn. Just having those in your deck gives you a bit more flexibility. You know, different costs means that you have more options on some of those key turns. Same with the Spears of Surreality, both having Go Again and costing 1. It can get a little bit awkward sometimes. So we'll have a think about these light cards. So Illuminate, I think Illuminate's fine. Like a red Illuminate, I'm happy to play that. It's got an on-hit effect. It costs 0. You can, you know, threaten something off a 1-card hand. So I'm happy with that. We don't want to play too many unnecessary reds though. So Seek Enlightenment I think will go in the maybe pile. Glisten, we'll put in the non-attack action, even though it's technically an instant. Illuminate, I'm happy to play another of those reds. Always happy to play Invigorating Lights. Because Invigorating Light doesn't need to hit to go into the soul. So when you play it, if there are no cards in your soul, you put it into your soul when the combat chain closes. So that's a really, really nice one in Prism. It does cost 3, which is pretty expensive, but the capacity to guarantee yourself that tempo swing, if you get the attack off, means that you can plan out your next few turns with a lot more certainty. When you choose not to block with, say, Invigorating Light and a blue, you know you're going to get the Invigorating Light attack, and then you know that you're going to have the opportunity to make a Spectral Shield and attack with the Spectral Shield using your Iris of Reality the following turn. So it's a really nice card to have. Rising Solar Tide is another maybe. It has a hit into Soul Trigger the same way as Illuminate, but it does cost 1, so we'll think about that. We'll think about the Celestial Cataclysm too. I'm not entirely sold on that in Limited. Blinding Beam is a bit of a sideboard card, although sometimes it'll make it into my main deck. Same with this Rising Solar Tide. Impenetrable Belief, very much a sideboard card, and same with that Ray of Hope and that Blinding Beam. So some decent sideboard cards that I think could turn into main deck cards, depending on how we end up here with the generics. So let's see how we go. Tremor of Yarathel, always happy to play. If a card's been put into your banish zone, it's a 1 for 6. And you can trigger that by creating a Spectral Shield using Prism's ability. So definitely a decent one. Adrenaline Rush, a perfectly fine blue. We do want to up our blue count a bit. Not going to play Belittles. We probably will play this Stony Wootenhog as another blue that has decent stats. Another Tremor, decent stats on a blue. Second Swing we don't want. Surging Militia we're happy to play. No to Belittle. Yes to Rally the Rearguard, which helps us turn Glisten into a block for 3, or some of our other block for 2s into block for 3s. Brandish, happy to play as an attack. Memorial Ground will cut. Yinty Yanties are probably... Surging Militias are probably... Surging Militias, sorry, definitely. The second Yinty Yanti is also probably. Brandish again. Happy to just play this as a 1 for 3 with Go Again, because you can... The idea of being able to pitch a blue and go Brandish into Herald means that you're forcing them to either block the Brandish or take 3 that turn, and then your Herald, which can be popped, goes afterwards. So Brandish just leads to some nice sequencing. This red Overload... Yeah, we'll think about that. That's I think, in the maybe pile. Zealous Belting... It's good in Prism because its trigger of getting Go Again is more likely to be met in Prism because you've got more things with higher strength than it that can go into your pitch zone. Although it's worth noting that it needs to be a 6, and none of our blues are 6s, so we'd need to be pitching a yellow or a red to trigger Zealous Belting's ability. But still, I think a fine one to play, and then Surging Militia. So we end up here with not many non-attack actions. I don't think I've accidentally put any non-attack actions in here, have I? They're all attacks. I think so, yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 31, 2, 3. So 33, there are going to be some matchups where I feel like my opponent's trying to exhaust me, or I feel like it's going to be a bit more grindy, where I'm definitely just going to bring in more cards. There are then going to be sort of shadow matchups where I'm going to want even more of these cards. I might play Ray of Hope potentially. I may also play Blinding Beams, particularly if I'm against Leviah. And I've got both the blue and the red. I'd probably play them both against Leviah to help protect my Phantasms. And then we've got a couple of other attacks that we might bring in, even against Bolton, just in case we end up in a bit more of a grindy game where we have to block a bit more. So we want a few more blocks in our deck, and Rising Solar Tides blocking for 3 is really nice. So I think both those Rising Solar Tides could come in. The Celestial Cataclysm could obviously come in as well if we're expecting... our deck has a lot of attack action, so it's going to be a little less reliant on the Iris of Reality, but I think the idea of sandbagging 3 attacks just to get the Celestial Cataclysm, sandbagging 3 cards in your soul just to get the Celestial Cataclysm is not always where I want to be at. I like the tempo plays of being able to create Spectral Shields and threaten those go again attacks just off pitches, because it is also really efficient in terms of pitching cards back into your deck rather than having to spend attacks constantly. So yeah, I think that this is probably where I'd land as a main deck, and then I'd look to bring in some of those Rising Solar Tides, maybe Celestial Cataclysm, but unlikely, and then, yeah, Blinding Beam and Impenetrable Belief from time to time. So I hope you've enjoyed this sealed pool. We'll be back with some more sealed pools out of that freshly opened box very shortly. I've been Jesse Marshall for The Winning Agenda. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. Let me know the sort of content you like and that you're enjoying. I know I mentioned previously some gameplay footage, but unfortunately, when I was editing it, I realized we had some corruption in that. So we're going to have to re-record that, me and my friend Daniel. But we will bring you some gameplay footage as soon as we can. And then we'll also have some deck techs coming up. I really want to do a deck tech on both Chain and Prism, but I'm going to do a little bit more testing and plan a few more events before I push those deck techs out into the world. But let me know what other content you'd like to see for Flesh and Blood. Hope you're enjoying the videos. I've been Jesse Marshall, and we'll be back next time very soon.